ISA was formed in 1945. None of the original founders are still around. Few people today may be aware of the reasons why the society was formed and the issues it's faced over the years. We've always been an organization in transition. One of the points of this presentation is to give people a better historical understanding of the organization, which might help put some of our current problems in perspective and help frame potential solutions we may need to consider. The historical portion of this presentation are from excerpts of a 1995 book covering the first 50 years of the Society. Here's a question for you. Do you know the full depth and breadth of ISA? In my experience, many leaders seem to be wearing blinders and only see a small portion of the society. They're not seeing the big picture. They only see what they're involved with. If you don't understand the big picture and how all the pieces work and fit together, all the money and time you spend on your project, whatever that may be for naught. So what's this? A man and a woman. Can you tell their profession? But when you see the whole picture, it points to the importance of seeing the big picture. No doubt everyone involved in this overall photo thought they were doing a great job. But if the graphic designer doesn't know the layout of the bus on which the photo will appear, and doesn't know where the exhaust pipe is located, the whole project may have to be scratched. Thinking only of your group and what's best for your group may not be in the best interest of ISA overall. It's important to see the big picture. So this presentation will cover how ISA was formed, a bit of our history, the progress we've made, and some of the problems we face, and possible solutions going forward. So we'll cover, again, how ISA was formed, a bit of our history, the progress, the challenges we face, a review of our current vision, mission, and goals, things we should be potentially considering for the future. And if I were king, which I'm obviously not, I'm just the President-elect Secretary for 2018, what might I like to do? And some really great reference materials that I would hope all ISA volunteer leaders would read. Our society was born over 70 years ago by individual instrument societies that realized they could do more together than separately. Here's a list of some of them. The Houston Instrument Society actually wouldn't join because they didn't feel the membership requirements were strict enough. What were the goals when the society was originally formed? To advance the arts and sciences related to the theory, design, manufacture, and use of instruments and controls. That's way more than one local section or society could do on their own. To encourage research, the group combined could do that. They couldn't do it separately. To foster education across the whole country. To advance the standards of science and engineering. Again, together the larger group could do that. Individual smaller groups couldn't. And lastly, I think today we might phrase that one a little bit differently. So this goes way beyond simply serving members. And again, these are all things that individual groups could not do on their own. They needed to band together to accomplish such lofty goals. But even early on, consensus was not easy. Multiple groups were formed, many of these which still exist. Form our Constitution, which now is our bylaws and Manual of Operation and Procedures and other documents. The Finance Committee, which we still have. The Membership Committee. Exhibit Committee, which we basically still have an Exhibit and Conference Committee. We still have a nominating committee. We still have publications. A little bit of history. So the group was formed in 1945, and 1 year later they had a conference. Next year they have a journal. Well, actually there was an Instruments magazine. They had articles in it, and ISA actually had its first journal in 1954. First division was formed several years after starting. Had a recommended practice 3 years or 4 years after they started. Standard a little bit later, 67. And publishing their own journals and books decades after they started. And how we've grown over the years. So 1 year after forming, the membership is 900. 9 years later, at order of magnitude larger, 6,900. 36,000 members in 97 countries. The conference, 1 year after they started, a conference that had 5,000 attendees, even though there's only 900 members. Much larger, a couple of decades later, and the largest in 1993, 30,000 people attending a conference. Can you imagine that? Rockwell's Automation Fair, which is the largest of the vendor venues that I'm aware of, draws half of that figure now. But the world was a different place back then. People couldn't get this sort of information anywhere else. ISA was basically the only game in town back at that time. That was before the internet. We obviously have a lot more competition now. We've been re-examining our belly button since the beginning. So just several years after they formed, they already had a structure and planning committee to address corporate membership, increase the income, evaluate the structure, study the nominating procedures, just 4 years after they started. Several decades after they started, six long-range planning committees. Can you imagine a 300-page report with hundreds of recommendations? So this is not the first time we've had membership declines or declining revenue or growth. So we're experiencing now things that are not exactly new. So times have changed back from our peak to what they are now. Staff is half of what it used to be. Our budget is half of what it used to be. Membership is half of what it used to be. That's not including the association community members or subscribers, as the name has changed a bit over time. And our governance cost is not what it used to be, and this may be questioned. So look at it another way. At our peak, how many elected and appointed volunteer leaders did we have? Think of the executive board members, department and district vice presidents, division directors. If anything, that number has increased over the years. Does that make sense? Perhaps we need to right size. And here's an analogy. Imagine a school that has 100 teachers serving 2,000 students. And redistricting and changes in population and demographics result in there now being only 1,000 students, half of what it once was. Should all 100 teachers still remain? The school can no longer afford to pay them. Now, you don't have to fire any of them. You perhaps just don't need to replace them when they retire or they leave. Perhaps we can do the same with many of our elected leaders. Perhaps. And after all, we do have a smaller pool of people to draw on. But, hey, if we're willing to fund such a large leadership pool and be almost 3 times what other associations are as the norm, so be it. We've had major budget misestimates in the past. In 2009 was a financial crisis a bit outside of our control, but there have been times where we had almost a $10 million budget deficit. But accepting budget deficits because we have an investment portfolio worth around $25 million, and that makes up for the yearly loss. That's a questionable practice. I mean, if we didn't have that portfolio, we would most likely have either changed a long time ago, or we would have gone out of business. Where we make our money has also changed over time. Back in 2004, things were fairly evenly spread over the conference, which we no longer quite do. Training was less than a quarter. Journals was almost a quarter. But now, training is over half of our income. Membership, that's only 11%. Now, having one item, training in this case, represent half of our revenue potentially could be dangerous. Think about any organization that has the bulk of their income coming from one area, and what happens if that area comes under attack. Yet these pie charts don't say who is buying our products. That actually comes on the next slide. And for many of those who believe we need to increase membership, this slide perhaps might prod you into thinking, why? What's the overall goal of increasing membership? Is that going to result in more income? More members is more of an outcome than an actual goal. If we offer goods and services that people in the industry want and can't get elsewhere, they will join voluntarily without having to be coaxed. More on that later. So where does our revenue actually come from? So members are certainly important. There are association community members. They don't generate a whole lot of income for the organization, even though there's 18,000 of them. Got about 20,000 members, and considering their membership and what little they'll buy, about $175 per order, and that's $3.5 million. So members aren't spending that much either. They don't result in the bulk of our income. Non-members, fewer orders, but an order of magnitude larger orders that they place. And we've got a few 100,000 customers in our database who buy things from us over the years. So members are certainly important, and growing them would be great, but we serve a larger audience that generates larger revenues. So don't forget that the majority of our revenue, 3/4 of it, comes currently from non-members. We exist to serve the industry in addition to members. Now, ISA is a rather complex organization. Many section leaders I've met are only familiar with sections and thinks that's all there is to ISA. Sections are grouped into districts. Districts are grouped and make up the geographic assembly. But there's the operation assembly of many different departments, and the professional development department has other groups within it. There's the technical assembly. All of the more than a dozen technical divisions are formed into two groups. There's the automation and technology and the industry and sciences departments, and there's standard and practices, which have all the various standard committees, and they make up the technical assembly. The executive board oversees all of that, and there are more than a dozen different permanent committees, some of which are listed here. So we are a complex organization, and some parts are not familiar with the others. Sections are incorporated separately, have their own separate goals, and often don't interact with or even understand the rest of the organization. Every single group here is important. They all have their unique role. No one part is more important than another, just like all the parts of the body. It's like the joke about the body parts. All the organs of the body were having a meeting, trying to decide who was the one in charge. I should be in charge, said the brain, because I run all the body systems, so without me, nothing would happen. And the blood says, I should be in charge, because I circulate oxygen all over. Without me, you'd all go to waste. And the stomach said, I should be in charge, because I process the food and give you all energy. And the leg said, I should be in charge, because I carry the body wherever it wants to go. And the eyes said, I should be in charge, because I allow the body to see where it goes. And the rectum says I should be in charge because I'm responsible for waste removal. And all the other body parts laughed at the rectum and insulted him. So in a huff, he shuts down tight. And within a few days, the brain has a terrible headache, the stomach was bloated, the legs got wobbly, the eyes got watery, and the blood was toxic. They all decided that the rectum should be the boss. And the moral of the story? Even though the others do all the work, it only takes one rectum to ruin it for the rest. In essence, we're all playing together as part of a team. We've agreed on the game plan, we've all practiced. Yet when it comes to game time, what would happen if one group decided to diverge from the plan, perhaps for their own self-interest? Then the whole team loses. Now, I do have a video connected with this, but I won't show that in this presentation in this format. You've all heard there's no I in team. We are all part of a team, and there is an I in team. Do you know where it is? It's in the a-hole. So these are some of the things that ISA does, and it's what we do well. This is more than just serving our members. We create education and training programs. We have certifications. We write standards. We have various publications, over 100 books. And we do conferences and exhibits. Again, this is more than just for our members. We do this for industry. And sections do a great deal on their own to help their local members and industry. Again, it's all pieces of ISA are important. Sections have their monthly meetings where they can do networking and present technical material. Many of them do fundraising events and do thousands of dollars every year in scholarships. They offer local training courses. They have their own tabletop shows and their own networking. But remember that ISA faces serious competition in all of these areas. So where can we expand? What new markets can we serve? The current world of automation is much more than sensors, DCS, and PLCs and valves. The world of automation is vastly different than it was between 1940 and 1970, and we need to change with it, or we'll go by the way of the buggy whip manufacturers. We have a mission statement and a vision statement and goals. You might have seen them on a small little business card, two-sided, that we created several years ago at one of our leader meetings, facilitated by an outside person. Now, vision statements in general should cover the why an organization exists. Not what do they do, but why they do it. It should be a very short statement. It should be something that's inspiring, something that makes you want to join and be involved, without using the word inspire in the actual message. Here is our current vision statement. We can read that together. ISA sets the standard. It's a phrase we've had in the organization for a long time, setting the standard. ISA sets the standard for automation by enabling automation professionals across the world to work together for the benefit of all. For the benefit of all, that's a nice sentiment. That's what we do. That's not why we do it. Does that statement inspire you? It's very left-brained and wordy. Does it make you want to get out of bed in the morning to be part of that? Does it inspire a prospective member to join or a prospective volunteer to step up to the plate and serve? I think it could be greatly enhanced and simplified. Personally, I like something along the lines of enabling a better world through automation. Short and sweet. The verb enabling is important. It shows our role in that vision. A better world through automation. Mission statements cover the what and the how of an organization and what they do. Here is our current statement. Read that together. Enable our members, including worldwide subject matter experts, automation suppliers, and end users, to work together to develop and deliver the highest quality, unbiased automation information, including standards, training, publications, and certifications. Yeah, I agree with that. But who is this statement written for? Who is it trying to appeal to? Customers? Members? Or volunteers? This is saying enabling our members, including. Well, what about people who are not members of ISA? Why should they be interested in ISA? Because it doesn't sound like it's appealing to industry. Mission statement should be focused for customers and members, not for volunteer leaders. How about this one as a potential mission statement? Making automation professionals and their employers more successful through standards, publications, training, certifications, and conferences. Because that's what people want from any organization, to make them more successful at what they do. And why would any employer be interested in having their employee be involved? Because it benefits the company by making them more successful as well. Now, on the back of that card, we have 5 goals. Now, goals, and I have links here in this particular presentation that I'm not going to click on and open up things that are on the ISA website. You can look at those at your own, or on your own. But goals, I'm sure you've all heard, and you're involved in goal setting within your employment and setting goals for what you do in your company. And you know probably that goals, you've heard this phrase, need to be SMART. So SMARTs, and this is what the acronym stands for. Let's look at our current goals that were created by a large team of people at a leader meeting. Content. ISA will develop timely, relevant content on important topics to meet the career enhancement and professional development needs of the automation community. Does that meet any of these 5 SMART topics? That's what ISA was doing 30 years ago, and hopefully this is what we'll be doing 5 years in the future. How do we measure this? How timely is this? Just saying it's in progress. Well, it's been in progress the whole time ISA has existed. Data. ISA will use data, in other words, surveys, to understand trends, make decisions, and develop products and services. Well, that's basically what we did in the past. That's hopefully what we'll do in the future as well. How measurable is this? Now, ISA actually has done, a few years ago, once all these things were set up, did do some surveys that I have seen and some of the results, but I'm not aware of any changes or what it's led us to do now that we are aware of some of that information. Coolest delivery. ISA will deliver industry-leading content that is easily accessible via multiple platforms. Is that measurable? How timely? At what point do we say we're done? We've met that. Or is this going to be another in progress, ongoing sort of thing? How well does it meet these 5 SMART requirements? Cybersecurity. ISA will be the leading source of standards, training, expertise in cybersecurity. Okay, well, we've developed standards and they're still in progress. We have a training course series and certificate program. We certainly have expertise. You go to any ISA or any cyber show, or you Google cybersecurity, and ISA doesn't pop up. So how do we measure this one? How timely is this one? Advocacy. ISA will increase understanding and awareness of the automation profession across all age groups, resulting in enhanced proficiency in automation as a profession. Is that specific? How measurable is that? How achievable is that? How timely is that? Is this an ongoing, we were doing it 5 years ago, we'll be doing it 5 years in the future? How do we measure success of any of these? Frankly, personally, I think we can come up with better goals that meet these SMART sort of requirements. It's not going to happen overnight, and it will still take a bit of team effort. If I were king, which I realize I am not, I would certainly like us to see train more leaders more often, more effectively. Fewer leaders are attending leader meetings. Fewer section leaders even attend their own district leadership conferences. And if people, leaders, don't get the right training, they won't know what to do. Sections, districts, divisions, and departments will all flounder as a result. Many section delegates don't even show up to the Council of Society delegate meeting. Why can't we do this, the meeting and online training, virtually, online, at almost no cost? I think we can make that happen. Be more data-driven. Again, there have been some surveys, but this is actually an important one. If you ever have the time, ask your group of leaders, whether it's sections, divisions, districts, departments, whatever, ask your volunteer leaders why they are volunteer leaders. I did that once in the past. You'd be surprised by the variety of answers that you get. If we do more surveys, we can find out why people are leaders to hopefully entice others to be leaders. We can find out why are non-members not members. Again, some surveys have been done, but I'm not really aware of how we've used all the results. Now, surveys are great, but research and polls won't reveal all the answers. Polls didn't lead to the development of the automobile, television, the PC, or the iPhone. Henry Ford was quoted as saying, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. But granted, he essentially gave them a faster horse, but it didn't look like a horse, and people initially may not have wanted it. We've already done the surveys, and some of the messages were pretty clear. People want to be more successful at their jobs, and we have the information to enable that. They want information online. We can do that. We just need to provide the information they want in a format they want at a price they're willing to pay. Fewer and fewer people are going to be willing to travel to take a week-long class or attend a 3-day conference. But I believe we can repackage all of that in a format that people do want at a price they're willing to pay for. Give them information they can't get anywhere else. It's basically a golden handshake. Once they shake hands, they'll never let go. And a lot of that is doing much or providing much of our information online at a much lower cost than people having to attend a course for a week or a conference for multiple days. So why do we exist? What's our motherhood and apple pie statement? Well, like I mentioned earlier, we can enable a better world through automation. That is why IExig exists, to make the world a better place through automation. But we need to be realistic. For all the decisions and the actions that we as a society make, we need to consider how will it benefit industry. It's much more than just our members, but we do want to benefit our members in many ways as well. We want to get people that golden handshake so they will join and be members. And will it be financially viable? We don't want to rob Peter, one part of the organization, to pay Paul, another group that is floundering, just to keep them going because, well, that's good for the industry. Well, it's got to be financially viable. We are a business. Just because we're a non-for-profit and tax-exempt organization, we still have to be financially viable. Think of putting a little twist on John Kennedy's statement. So ask, as leaders, ask not what ISA can do for you. Ask what you and your ISA group, whatever that group may happen to be, can do for ISA and for the field of automation. It's all about relevance. For example, the ISA Safety Division, which I was the founding director of 15 or so odd years ago, has had around 1,400 members. And there's a safety listserv, an email broadcast system, which only has about 790 of those members. Not all division members want to receive ISA emails, as I'm sure many of you know. Might have even backed out of some of the email broadcasts that are available to you. Yet the LinkedIn Safety Integrity Level SIL group has 20,000 members. Those people want information and they get it online. Do you think those people feel a need to join ISA? Apparently not. We need to think about and focus on what we as ISA can provide that people in industry can't get anywhere else. If we can provide that, people will become ISA members without our having to ask them. We first have to provide a tangible benefit. We simply can't try and get more people to join a society they perceive offers them nothing of value. I'll let you read that. And some people don't want to read, but what's the point of having books like this? Would you rather learn from the mistakes of others or make them all yourself? There is an incredible wealth of knowledge in these books, so we don't have to make the same mistakes that others have. All of these books I've shown are great, but the Will to Govern Well is really outstanding. I highlight books when I read them, and I highlighted about a third of that book when I read it, more than I've highlighted any other book. And I review the highlighted portion of all these books and many others periodically. Frankly, I'd like to consider them required reading for all executive board members, and I'd hope that all vice presidents and volunteer leaders read them as well. So we need to evolve, or else we'll go the way of DOS, for those old enough to even know and remember what that operating system was. If we can't provide tangible value and benefits to industry and members, there's no reason for us to exist. We have plenty of competition. What can we do now that they can't? So I hope this presentation will get you all thinking, talking, and planning for a successful future for ISA and the automation profession.